Boop. Hey folks. Hello everyone. How are y'all doing? How is everyone doing this week? It is Tuesday, once again. Tuesday Blues Day? Tuesday, whose day? Tuesday, I got nothing. I hope everyone's good, though. I hope everyone's fine. If you'll take a little look behind me here, you will see that this is not Microsoft Word. This is frickin' OpenOffice. Hello, OpenOffice. Hi, OpenOffice. How you doing? How's your week been? I want everyone to give a warm welcome to OpenOffice, our new best friend, our freeware writing application, among many other things. None of which I have tried or have any intention on trying. But it is a suite of tools. The part of which I care about is the writing one. And those of you with very keen vision will see that, yes, in the right side of the screen, there is a native file open, a .odt, of which I've converted my first draft into. And on the left part of the screen, you'll see that draft dev notes 19.docx is just hanging out. This shit opens Windows. This shit opens Microsoft files. Comic, 4-panel comic of man sitting on a lounge chair. I just don't know if I can handle it anymore. OpenOffice. I can send email. Oh shit, for real? That's OpenOffice. OpenOffice can send email. It can also write email. It pretty much do everything. Some things it can't do is highlight very well. So some of the highlighter colors might be different. We'll notice that a little more going on when I start working in the program natively. I think that's chapters 37 onward, but like past that point, we're getting to the end of the book, so it doesn't really matter. But that's neither here nor there. Today we are here to talk about chapter 28 in this standalone episode. As Robin has mentioned, yes, there are 11 pages of notes. That is nothing. That is a fool's number. These are pitiful prospects. This is nothing. I can't be stopped. Actually, I don't know. I can vouch for chapter 37 and 38 because those are the ones I've been working on. But as for chapters 29 through 36, I didn't memorize how much those have. Get off my back. That's not my job. My job is to just write the notes. I don't care what they actually say. That's future me's problem. Present me's problem is reiterating these notes into a format that is digestible, that is viewable, that is listenable, that can be heard, so that future me can listen and maybe watch and maybe just kind of skim through these videos and go, oh, what was I talking about? What was that moron talking about? I don't know. Maybe I'll just skip this part. Maybe I'll just rewrite chapter 28. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it could. Anyways, is there anything else I need to say before we hunker down here? I don't know. I don't really know. I guess we'll find out. If I remember, then hey, that's it. The one thing, there's more than one thing. A thing about OpenOffice is, I'm sure you notice when I scroll here, there's a really annoying little banner. Really annoying. I don't know, maybe it doesn't bother you. It bothers the heck out of me. It's really, I don't know. I've been pampered by Microsoft and their slick, clean program. So little tiny things like this really get on my nerves. Why does there have to be a banner when I scroll? I know what page I'm on. It says down here. I don't have to have it tell me while I scroll. I've gone through the options. I can't tell why it's doing that. I can't tell. Probably picked up on mic. That was my ring hitting my desk. Pardon me. That's something. I've been meaning to adjust the model to have my ring on because I should. That should be a thing. But oh well. Maybe I'll do it one day. Maybe in the version 2 update. We'll see if that ever happens. Probably not. Maybe for a 100 subscriber milestone, I'll update my friggin' model. Wouldn't that be something? Hey, folks, if you want me to look like not garbage, please subscribe to the channel. Just kidding. You can do what you want. I don't give a shit. I'm going to be here anyway. Whether or not you're watching, I'm here. For eternity. This is where I live. Let's get things started here. This week I wrote a synopsis. I didn't write a synopsis. I wrote like bullet points on a sticky note. I don't know if that'll pick up on mic. That was me pulling the sticky notes off of the desk. So I wrote like a condensed summary, so we don't have to go through the whole thing of me like vaguely reading and then turning back to the microphone and then vaguely reading. Hopefully this just goes quickly. I'll scroll along in case you want to read, above my head as we go. But yeah, let's dive into things with our little chapter summary here. Things start off basically shortly after, not really, like time has expired between now and when Teal departed the night, but as far as the plot cares, it hasn't really been that long. As far as readers go, right, like readers aren't going to really understand it's been a great heap of time, which maybe is my own shortcoming. Maybe I should make that more apparent. But that's neither here nor there. That's for the notes problem. Right now we're just doing a synopsis. So Teal's here, having departed the night. She's walking along. She's noticing that the landscape is changing. It's becoming a little more harsh. Not as though it's really rocky. It's not treacherous, but it is becoming more hardy. She notes some defining features in the landscape, like how the trail beneath her feet is getting harder, how the hills are getting taller, how things are becoming more uneven. And while she's doing this, she's really just ruminating. She's going through her mind. She is puzzling things out. She's thinking about the night and this and that. She's not going too insane, but she's going a little insane, that's for sure. She's noticing stuff like the weather, the atmosphere changing a little bit. And it's while she's stuck in consternation that she hears something in the distance. She hears the horns of a train. And that really brings her out of her languishing. It doesn't, she's still languishing, but now she's languishing about the train horn, the train in the distance. And she has some interesting thoughts regarding her place in the world and, whether or not the train, where it went, where people ended up, where that faraway city was, where the people on the train are right now. Her mind is abuzz with these sorts of considerations. And she gets a little depressed, but that's neither here nor there. She carries on. She follows the trail hither and thither, over the hills and around the bend until she sees the structure she strives towards. In the distance, she sees, yep, there it is. There's the Sage's Tower. And she kind of just ogles it from a distance. It's got a strange shape. It's kind of got this air of alienness, of almost like, I don't think I do a good job of describing it, but it's got this kind of whimsical oddity to it. It's kind of leaning a little right. It's asymmetrical in shape. It's not a tower. It's not just like, the tower of a castle. Not just a round pillar made of stone. It's not Rapunzel's tower. This is kind of it's almost made of blocks. It's got pieces jutting out here and there. Support beams propping up this or that. I feel like there's probably a good reference to some sort of iconic piece of media that I could say, but I am a dullard and I do not know of one off the top of my head. So Teal's getting closer to this tower. She's thinking, okay, great, I'm finally getting closer. She's starting to feel tired. She ends up in the front garden of this place. And she has this moment where she's thinking, boy, I really want to stop here, and I really want to admire this garden, but I better not, so I'll just keep going, I guess. She heads to the front door. She's kind of caught off guard. She's caught off guard by a strange happening where the doors just fly open in front of her face, and she can't really explain them. Shortly after, she's assaulted by a telepathy beam, a telepathical suggestion. And, you know, it turns out, oh yeah, it's the sage. The sage is just kind of speaking to her through her mind. And that's okay. That's great. They kind of fill her in like, yep, don't worry about things. The door opened because there's a invisible servant. There are multiple of them. You should follow one of them and come on over and visit me and talk to me because these, you know, the servants can't talk. They're just invisible. Yes, thank you, Robin. Teal was assaulted by a tilapia. You're astute as ever. Those fish, you got to be careful, you know. The best thing you should do if you're ever assaulted by a tilapia is get some lime and just coat that sucker. Just make a good ceviche on the spot. You can't go wrong. You ever had ceviche? It's pretty good. It's tangy. But anyways, oh, sorry, I punched my mic. I got too many things here. You know, normally with the chapter summary, I have one hand on the mic and the other hand on the keyboard. But now I got things. I have to juggle my freaking summary notes here. So sometimes you just punch the mic. Once again, I apologize. I digress, however. Where were we? Right, telepathy, not tilapia. Teal's contacted by the sage, and the sage essentially instructs her, Go through the house. I'm in the study. Let's chit-chat. I saw you on your way up. I saw you approaching, so let's talk. And Teal kind of finds this a little weird, but she goes along with it because she's tired, and also she's here to talk to the sage, so she really wouldn't say no to a cordial parley. A parlance? No, it's still parley, I think. That's neither here nor there. She's guided to the study. It involves some rigmarole. She travels through the tower. She goes up a lift. There's some funny gags in here. We get into some architecture. She's traded off from one invisible servant to another, but she eventually makes her way into the sage's study, which is this huge, brilliant library of sorts with this massive window in the, you know, overlooking the landscape. And she, you know, if you can believe it, hey, the sage is there in the study where they said they would be, and they're kind of just hanging out. They're sitting, they're waiting for Teal. One of the servants has actually brought tea. One of the servants that Teal is following has brought tea along with them, and that's great. Who doesn't like a little snack and tea when they're catching up with a total stranger? So Teal proceeds. She meets with the sage, and basically that's it. She sits down. There's a bit of a conversation here. There's actually a really big conversation, if you can believe it. Most of the rest of the chapter just involves these two talking. It's almost like the crux of this chapter is the two having a big conversation about really important things. And that makes me wonder if, I wonder if the sage is a critical character in Teal's gathering of information. Who could say? I can say, I know, but I wrote the book, so I sure hope I know when important plot beats are coming up. So the two are talking, and there's this integral moment where Teal discovers, oh, the sage can actually do magic. That's crazy. Teal throughout the whole book until this point has been like, magic? ? Is magic actually a thing, or have I gone insane? Turns out, hey, she hasn't gone insane. She just isn't able to do magic right now, but hey, here's somebody who can. She's pretty odd. She's basically floored. And this leads to a wonderful and riveting conversation regarding Teal's own experience with the arcane, with magic. The conversation twists a little bit, you know. At first it starts off like, oh, magic, isn't that crazy? How did you do that? That conversation turns itself down an avenue, which is, Well, yeah, I mean, I know magic. I'm old. I'm the sage. People call me the sage. Yeah, I'm old. Of course I know magic. Those aren't actually the rules, but that's basically kind of what they allude to. And they reverse the topic and turn to Teal and say, okay, well, like, you must know of magic based on how you're speaking. How do you know? Were you educated? And this leads Teal to talking about her education, her past a little bit, what she can remember, that is, which isn't very much. And that in itself kind of twists its way into the two discussing memory, into how memory works here in the wherever. Why is it that people forget large swaths of their life? How can one go about getting their memories back, if that's even a possible thing? And the sage here doesn't really have a lot of great answers. They too admit, yeah, I've got amnesia. I don't remember a lot. I've had quite a bit come back to me in my time here, but even I can't really say for certain where I came from or what happened before I was here. They've retaught themselves how to do magic, and they explain to Teal that the reason a lot of people here have no idea about magic is because most of the people who do can't do it because the magic here just sucks. You can kind of think of it as like, you ever go to the mountains? You ever go up real high and the air is really thin and you can't breathe well, so you gotta like walk slow. You can't climb the mountain real good. I've never done that, but it's kind of the same idea where people who do magic here can't really do magic very well or at all because the magic is just so thin. They literally can't breathe, so to speak. Their magic can't breathe, I guess, would be the more apt terminology. And that's great. There's a lot of gold. There's a lot of good world building in here, which is lovely. But from the point of conversing about memory, Teal finally gets to the reason why she's here. You know, the sage is kind of weirded out. Not weirded out, but they bring it up in kind of a confused manner. And they say, hey, why are you here anyway? Like, I didn't invite you, so you've got to be here for a reason. Why don't you go ahead and tell me what that is? And Teal comes to the crux of her entire exploits until now. Well, I mean, for the entirety of part 3, that is. It's really only from part 3 onward that we get a good sense of like what Teal is actually trying to do. She herself was pretty clueless until she had a kind of like a goal in mind. And she confesses to the sage, yeah, I'm trying to find the bell tower. Turns out the sage, as it would happen, has basically spent their whole time here in the wherever studying the bell tower. They seem to know a lot about it anyways. And so a lot of the back half of their conversation here is the sage revealing information regarding the bell tower, their ideas and curiosities surrounding the structure, its various mysteries, and also, most importantly, they reveal to Teal that it's probably a little dangerous, that this location isn't without its precautions. I guess precautions isn't right. One would take precautions. What would a building have? Defenses? Maybe that's a better word to use. The structure has various defenses. There's not entirely a welcoming air to the surrounding area, as it would happen. And Teal's pretty put off by this. She doesn't really express herself very well. She doesn't really admit that, like, okay, yeah, that sounds scary. She mostly just kind of agrees. She's just like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, fine. If that's how it is, that's how it is. I don't really have another alternative. So I guess I just have to deal with these apparent dangers that lurk in my future. These roadblocks I might have to cross. It's at this point that the sage brings up an alternative to Teal's life, to her future, in which they present the idea that they wouldn't mind taking Teal on as an apprentice. Teal, who, has admitted, I'm pretty sure I went to school for magic. Teal, who very openly witnessed magic and identified it as magic, has not maybe proven herself as a potential apprentice to the sage, but has been one of, I don't want to say hundreds, who knows how many people have come to the sage and expressed like a desire to know their knowledge. But the sage is pretty open about the fact that, yep, you're pretty much the only person who's come here who has been able to identify magic right off the hop. So that's really promising. And in fact, you might be the only other individual here in the wherever who knows of magic. So I don't want to let this opportunity slip through my fingers. So they offer Teal this apprenticeship under them, right? It's pretty clear based on their extensive library of tomes, their knowledge, their wisdom, that the sage knows their stuff. They don't exactly express a scholarly inclination that they are a teacher, but Teal's taken aback by this offer. It doesn't seem like the sort of thing that should come out of the blue, and yet here it is. It really catches her off guard. And it's not exactly something she's against either. She is really caught in this dilemma by her desire to learn magic, by this craving to maybe just stop all of this fussing and have a little break and just learn some magic. And she kind of she doesn't con herself into it, but she reasons that, hey, maybe I could stop and learn some magic and we could study the bell tower a little more, and then I could press on when I'm better prepared. Or maybe I could just go to the bell tower right now and get this all over with instead of wasting my time here. She's pretty torn about the idea of staying put for any amount of time, especially given how tired she is. It's at the end of this conversation that we come to a point where the sage notices said lethargy. In fact, they look at Teal and she's so pale and slumped over by the end of this conversation that they think she's sick, that she's going to be nauseous or something. So in a tizzy, the sage insists that Teal take a rest, that she get some sleep. It's pretty obvious that she's tired. Her responses have become rather laconic, very short, monosyllabic. And the sage, perhaps in a way of greasing the wheels, so to speak, they offer Teal a rest in their guest room. And Teal, who's in no position to refute, accepts the offer. She's taken up to the guest room by another one of these servants. She puddles around a little bit. She gets ready for bed. She's kind of in a stupor at this point. She washes up. She drinks a bunch of water. And she tucks herself in. She gets all nice and cozy on this big lavish bed. She turns to Lacrimosa and says her goodnights. And then she passes the heck out. In fact, that maybe isn't even a part of the summary, because it's kind of left up to the reader to decide whether or not she passes out. It's left very vague, because the next segment in chapter 29 also starts kind of vague, and we're hinting at this illusion that, yeah, maybe she fell asleep, maybe this is a dream sequence. I don't know. You'll have to figure it out. The doors open and the reader can walk through whenever they're ready, but they got to take that step. And until they do, it becomes pretty obvious later on that, yeah, this next segment's a dream sequence. But, the way this chapter ends is pretty airy. It really bleeds into chapter 29. But hey, with that, we made it. That is chapter 28. Those are the main points. I don't think I missed anything. Thank you, Sticky Notes. I'll never use you again. You've been a absolute treat. Thank you, Sticky Notes. That wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad for a summary, right? Whatever. It doesn't matter. I've taken to the idea that I shouldn't be so hung up on how the streams go, because I'm going to edit them anyway, right? This is mostly just my raw footage. In fact, I should probably just be doing this on a green screen and then putting things up behind me and whatnot, similar to how I did episode 0. But dang, fam, I'm lazy and I don't want to do that. I want to do as little work as I possibly can, and this is already a lot of work. I already have so much shit to do. I can't bother with editing a video for 5 hours a week. What do you think I am? I got notes to fix. I got a book to write. I got a zine to print. I got doodles. I got nothing, fam. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do a lot of work and I make a lot of nothing. Let's be real. That ADHD life, you know what I mean? Just working hard. The wheels are spinning, but fam, you're getting nowhere. Leave a like in the video if y'all if y'all are feeling my ADHD moments. Sorry, I'll stop with the shilling jokes. They're probably not as funny for viewers as they are for me. With that, however, let's do these notes. Let's dive right in. Because there's a lot of them. We got 11 whole pages, and like I said in the video description, if this stream goes for 3 hours, if this stream goes for 4 hours, well, that's just funny at that point. It shouldn't go that long. It will probably run over our 2-hour mark. I'm pretty confident about that, unless I can maintain a very strict and diligent thought process through my notes, which Lord knows I can't. Then maybe we can do it in under 2 hours. But let's stop flapping my gums here and let's hop to it. We've got our chapter 28 notes here, and let me open up the navigator real quick here and get us back to the start of chapter 28, because I really don't want to scroll. That is a nice feature of OpenOffice. It's got this little sidebar. Boop, just pops right out of the side. You can, as long as your stuff's labeled, you can navigate through it pretty well. It's got other features in there like the find tool, and I think you can also do your graphics from the sidebar there. But I digress. Oops. Clicked on the video instead of the old OBS here. I'm pumping in 3s and 0s into my draft. There's already enough of those. Actually, there's only like one set of a 3 and a 0. I guess there's chapter 3. Chapter 20 has a 0 in it. Chapter 40 has a 0 in it. I think that's it. Oh, part 3 has a 3 in it. Yeah, that's it. Anyways, let's get started here. We got to run all the way back to the beginning, so let's restart. You remember back at the beginning, Teal was leaving the night, and she's traveling through the hills. You good? You caught up? All right, let's go. So it's in this segment that Teal's doing a lot of thinking. And I don't think that's wrong, but there should be a greater reluctance to it. We briefly mentioned that she kind of doesn't want to think, that she's sort of averse to it, but she's not entirely avoiding it. We should make it more apparent that she really doesn't want to let her mind wander, because when Teal lets her mind wander, bad things have been known to happen. Bad things have been proven to happen. So she's really not keen on that. We should be building this idea that, yeah, like I just mentioned, she is aware. She's becoming aware that her thoughts, her lingering thoughts, letting them flow freely is what's manifesting some of these more insane, these less healthy ideas in her head. She's becoming fearful. She doesn't want to think. And on top of that, she's getting to this point in her exhaustion that she doesn't want to waste the energy. She wants to conserve her energy, right? Like when you think about how little it takes to think about something, Teal wants to conserve what little energy that takes, because that's how tired she's getting. She doesn't want to waste her thoughts on this or that. We move along. We steam straight ahead to the little bit where she hears the train in the distance. And it's at this point that we really need to build up the idea that this is a haunting moment for Teal, a very sinister reminder in the distance. We kind of describe it as possessing a bit of bite to it, of sounding like, I think I describe it as like a dragon playing the horns in the distance or something like that. And that's not really the wrong idea, but we need to build up this notion that it kind of tugs at teal. I don't know if y'all have ever heard a train blare its horn in the middle of the night, especially a cold night, a cold, snowy night, and you hear a train in the distance. Something about that sound is provocative. It almost sends chills down your spine, you get goosebumps. I don't get goosebumps. I'm not made of geese, but I've heard that's what you people do. And so that's kind of the atmosphere we're trying to build here in this scene. We want Teal to become unsettled. And we also want this to be something that strikes her, almost like somebody plucking the string of a harp. She takes too much time right now. She almost has a moment where she goes, oh, what's that sound? It sounds like blank. Oh yeah, it's the train. We want to back that all up and have Teal almost stop in her tracks and be caught by this sonic reverie. That she pauses and goes, oh, the train. She immediately knows what it is, and she's immediately stunned by this sort of fright that bubbles up from hearing that noise at such a distance. However, the thoughts she does manifest from this point are pretty well fine. The things she's feeling here, the things she's thinking about the train are all good. She has this whole little sentiment where she remembers a family that was sitting on the train diagonally from her or something. And she's thinking, what was that family doing on the train? Where were they headed? Are they there now? What are they doing now? Do they remember me? Do they remember seeing me? Was I even that big of a part of their life that they would remember me now of all times? If I can remember them now, surely they can remember me, but why would they bother remembering me? We start touching on this note that Teal is maybe getting a little cynical, that the exhaustion is bearing its weight down on her, that she's getting a little morose. And that's fine. Like I said, these are great thoughts. Gasp. Do you see this, viewers? Do you see this? I've just noted that my highlighting routine, my ritual, is incorrect. I've highlighted something green here that should be cyan and something cyan that should be pink. I did not see that we've gone a step here. This is a most egregious faux pas of me. Please, I hope you can find it in your hearts to forgive me. You want to, here, let's show off OpenOffice a little bit. Let's fix this in real time. So this is why OpenOffice is annoying. I have to go up here. I have to click cyan. I have to go over here. I have to click and highlight. And I have to go back up here. And I have to click magenta. I have to do that every time I want to highlight something. In Microsoft, all you do is you highlight a thing and you just it comes up. It comes up with a little thing, a prompt right here. And it's like, do you want to highlight that? And you go, yes. Super easy. Not this. I can keep it on magenta so I can keep going through and be like, yeah, I want this part magenta. But then I have to alter the color. So what I've had to do is go through and be like, yes, I'll do the yellow parts first. Okay, I'll go back through and do the green parts. Yeah, it's like the old days. Honestly, OpenOffice is basically just Microsoft Word 2003. It's just like a really old version of Microsoft Word. It's great. It's fine. It's really robust in what it can accomplish. But man, it has not been updated. I don't think anyone's really touched it in years. There's extensions for it. It has a very robust extension program for people to mess with the code and put in their own little side tools for it. But from what I've seen, the extension community is just dead. There's language packs, right? One of the most popular ones was a Hindi language pack for OpenOffice. And yeah, great. That's wonderful and accessible. I love that. You got any other features? You got an extension that highlights better? Could you maybe make an extension that has a built-in grammar tool? Because right now the grammar tool just shows you spelling mistakes. And that's not a good grammar tool. I'm going to have to start feeding things through Grammarly, and I know Grammarly steals stuff and strips it for AI building. Ugh. You just can't win these days. Sorry, aside over. Let's carry on. If I can find my mouse cursor, here it is. So yes, the thoughts that Teal has throughout the segment, they're wonderful. They're great. However, we come upon this notion that I alluded to, that Teal has this thought of, why would they bother remembering me? Why would anyone bother remembering me? And that's a good thought. That's something that she should ultimately land on, but I think we come upon it too abruptly. And it should be something that flowers. It should be something that, almost like a funnel, that Teal directs herself towards throughout these thoughts. I like that it's the culmination here, that it is the ultimate blossoming, but the way in which we get there is just too hasty. We need to kind of focus in on this notion and have that be the final note of this crescendo. I have here a suggestion. Maybe she, after all these ruminations, just sighs to herself. She just sighs out of resignation, continues on her way, and as she does, as she reluctantly proceeds, she begins to think, yeah, why would anybody bother remembering me? Which is really depressing. And hey, guess what? The rest of this book is really depressing. Hold on to your butts, folks. Part 3 gets depressing. And then it gets worse. But hey, hello. I promise you it gets better. Just keep reading. You don't have to. There's a point in the book where you can stop. I give you the option. There's a very definite option in the book that you can stop reading if you don't want to be sad. But it's going to get sad. It's going to get sad, and then it's going to not get sad, and then it's going to get a little better. Promise me. Promise me? I promise you. I promised me too, though. I did. That's why the book has a happy ending. Kinda? Maybe. Depends on how you look at it. Anyways, let's keep going. There's a weird question here. Right, so Teal moves on. And a big problem with this segment here, we get into a little bit more of the landscape, and that's wonderful. I love that for us. Some world building is always prudent. But we lose Teal in space a little bit. We lose where she is, what she's doing. Not so much what she's doing, but as she's approaching this tower, she falls off. She just falls off in space. So, similar to how I just lost my second viewer. They really stayed on here for quite a while. Good on them. They were here for at least like 40 minutes. Props to viewer number 2. You made it. That's gonna do numbers for my metrics, viewer number 2. So like I'm saying, Teal kind of falls off in space, and it just becomes this vague notion of that she is approaching, but we're not told where or what, like how far away from the tower she is, what lies between her and the tower, what's going on, how is she moving, where is she moving, is she ascending hills, is she descending, does she have to go around curves? We don't get any of that, which is annoying. By the time Teal gets to the tower, I feel, okay, how'd you get here? How long did it take? How far has it been? And we don't really get any answers. Teal's just walking along, and then she shows up at the tower. And I get why we do that. I get that I'm trying to build this inexplicable sense of space. I really went with the non-hard C in my mouth, like a vocal typo. I'm trying to make her arrive because, it's sudden and space doesn't matter and things are crazy here. Whoa. But don't do that. And if you're going to do it, be obtuse about it. Be upfront about it. But don't wiggle in and expect readers to understand, because, man, I wrote the book and I still feel like I fell off here. All right, so let's bring people along for the ride. Let's have Teal experience this journey and describe it. Right? Let's quit kicking the can down the road. We also don't get a good sense of the tower itself. We don't understand its volume in space, its stature, that it juts out from this hillside, that it towers over the landscape, that it is basically a landmark, that it's this isolated monolith amongst these hills. We don't get that sense at all. And yeah, like I said, it causes Teal's arrival the fact that we don't place her in space, nor do we place the tower in this landscape very well. Teal just shows up. She just shows up at the tower, and that's not good. If she's just, if she teleported there, great, good, we can write it like that, but she's not. She's walking there. If she's walking there, and we're here with Teal because she's our POV character, why does she just show up at the tower? No more of that. Cut that out. Stop that. She walks there. Let's go with her. Easy. This is me just saying, if we tie in how tired she is into this segment, and this is going to keep coming up throughout this chapter. I don't know why it happens. We really just fall off until it needs to be important. Teal's tiredness just disappears until it needs to be important at the end of the chapter. And frankly, I'm disappointed at myself that I allowed that to happen as a writer, but that's why we're doing this. That's why I'm going through the first draft and trying to correct it, is because big issues like this come up where Teal's tired at the start, she's fine in the middle, and then she's just dying by the end. Okay, where'd the tiredness go? Where'd the exhaustion go? Why did it just disappear? Did that 5-hour energy come back? It musta. Teal just hit the crash. Maybe that's what she's doing in this segment. Maybe that's why we lose her in space, is because she had to nip off and buy a Monster energy drink from the convenience store on her way. Anyways, this would be a good spot to tie in her lethargy. We can explain that she's tired as she's traveling towards the Sage's Tower. We can put the Sage's Tower in space as her goal that she's working towards, and as she's working towards it, we say, Teal is really tired. She does not like walking to the tower in the distance because it is far, but she keeps getting closer because she is headstrong and stubborn and does not stop because she is stubborn and persistent. Maybe she even pulls her banjo out. I don't know. We can definitely incorporate this idea. The last half of these notes is basically me saying, sure, we can incorporate that her sense of place in the world is going a little screwy, that she herself does not really clue in that she's traveling when she is. But if that's the case, if you've ever been walking through the city and you just kind of zone out and you show up at your destination and you think, wow, that was a 15-minute walk? How did that happen? Kind of like that, right? Where Teal just shows up at the Sage's Tower and she's like, whoa, like, where did I really zone out that much? Have I really spaced out? Cool, we can do that. If we want to save space here and we don't want to dig into the nitty gritty, fine. But if that's what we're going for, then let's describe it. Let's talk about how Teal spaces out, how she's zoning out, how she's, clouding over. She's unfocused. And then she just arrives. She can just arrive. That is an option. We just got to explain it, okay? Because otherwise, readers, or maybe it's just me because I'm dumb, but I certainly ended up at the Sage's Tower with Teal, and I was really confused how I got there with her. And that's not good. Confusion? Bad, unless it's the intention. But this is not. Teal gets to this garden, and this is just a small note. That Teal gets to this garden at the front of the tower, and she pauses here to think about how much she really enjoys the garden, how she wants to stop and stoop and just sort of enjoy the sight. But it's not, I don't know. It's not something that we should be so upfront about. We're tying in this notion that Teal's still tired, right? I just got done my little rant about how we need to talk about how Teal's tired. Another note of that is she should come up to this garden and be torn. She should be thinking, yeah, I guess I could stop, but I don't even think I have the energy to stop and enjoy a thing right now. She should be reluctant. She doesn't want to stop for the garden, right? She's got more important matters, but she does still stop. She is still pausing to look at the flowers. But right now it's painted as a way that she's like, oh boy, right? If you see this last sentence here, I'll read it out loud. If she had more energy, she would have liked to frolic through the space, but she decided to direct her attention to the large archway atop the stoop. Right? Okay, sure, fine. Why do we have to say it like that? can we not allude to the notion more subtly? Can we not imply more nuance to this scene? It's just too heavy-handed. Why are we talking about how Teal explicitly wants to frolic when we can suggest that by intertwining and weaving in her exhaustion as she's staring at these flowers and kind of just blinking slowly and thinking, wow, these are super pretty. Oh, is that mint? Oh, it smells great. Wow, I wonder what kind of tree that is. Huh. Oh man, I'm so tired right now. I just want to lie down here maybe a little bit. I better not. I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to go to the door. We need to just, and it's only like a paragraph, but it really bothers me that we're not intertwining her lethargy into things. So the doors fly open. Great. The doors fly open and Teal's led into the sage's tower by an invisible servant. Super. We need to address some things before that point, though. First off, Teal has very little reaction to seeing that the sage's tower is actually real. She kind of, like I said, she just arrives and she's there, and then she's like, oh, the garden, I guess, right? She should have this moment of genuine surprise that she's getting closer, that the sage's tower is actually a place. She's been under the impression that she's just kind of been walking aimlessly for who knows how long now. But she arrives and it hits her, you know? You ever just been walking for a long time and you actually arrive at the place? I don't know. I've definitely been, Robin will feel this when we were trying to visit this arboretum once, and we knew it existed. We were certain it was a place, but none of the trails on the map we were trying to follow existed, so we just had to follow the highway. We just had to walk along like a weird 2-lane highway, and it took forever, but we eventually made it. But once we did, we were like, is this actually the place? Did we really just get here by walking several kilometers under an underpass, under a major interchange? And we came to an arboretum, like in the middle of the city? How did this happen? Where are we right now? But we made it. And we should have this feeling here that Teal should just be wigged out a little bit. That like, oh wow, this is a real place. I didn't think I'd actually get here. Right now, it's just like, okay, the Sage's Tower, I did it, yippee. She should really have a moment of surprise, of awe that, oh yeah, this is a tower. Oh, it's really big. Oh, I'm actually here. That's surprising. We get a note here where Teal's adjusting her garment. She's a little nervous, and okay, that's cute. That's a cute note that she's vain and she's fussing about her accoutrement. But here at the stoop, when Teal is about to enter, she should be reflecting. She should really be coming to terms with this notion that, yes, I am at the Sage's Tower. Oh, I am a little nervous. I didn't think I'd actually get here. She should also be reflecting on the things that have happened to her thus far. I'm pretty banged up, right? Would that not go through her mind? I wonder how the knight's doing. I wonder how the florist is doing. I wonder how the mother and the parent and the child are doing. These should all be things, we don't have to address them all explicitly, but Teal should be thinking right now. Teal should be worrying and fretting, and her mind's kind of abuzz because she's not really in control right now. She's fretting. The door opens, it flies open, and Teal has this moment where she reaches for her dagger, which is good. This is just a very small note. It's good that she does that, right? We're keeping this animalistic quality to her, that she is past the point where I can't really call it humanity because she's a half-elf, but her good nature is starting to fray. That she is kind of just expecting things to clobber her, because she's been in these various bouts of hysteria where, she doesn't really know if she can trust the world right now. She doesn't know if her perceptions are believable. So I guess I'll just pull out my knife. And that's totally reasonable. This is a totally reasonable time. A door flies open all by itself. Yeah, girl, get out your knife. That's fine. I'd be stabbing. I wouldn't be stabbing. I'd probably just like fall over and cry. But you get it. Fight or flight. Right? And Teal chose fight here, and that's fine. You go, queen. We come back to this. We come back to this a little bit in a minute. And I need to set up the next beat so that this next section makes sense. So hold on for a second. The next portion is where Teal is contacted by telepathy. The sage reaches out via their magic and contacts Teal despite not being anywhere near them. They're basically Teal is basically on their property. So it's not as if she's far away. This isn't something that's hard for the sage, but it does jolt Teal, and Teal's kind of like weirded out a little bit. She feels kind of violated. And unfortunately, we don't take this beat seriously enough. The sage is reaching out through space to contact Teal with their mind. Okay? Draft 2 Teal, even Teal right now, even Draft 1 Teal, you don't know what telepathy is. You've not talked about it before. You know what magic is, but why is this just something you're perfectly okay with? She thinks, she kind of like chastises the sage's alarm commentary of "do not be alarmed," right? Okay, we're barely scratching at the surface of what kind of fear, what kind of violation Teal should be feeling, having her mind probed by a total stranger. Granted, she did kind of infiltrate their property, but this is somebody reaching out and touching her mind, communicating directly with her mind to be like, hey, I saw you. Come on up. Come on in. We should really take time to make this telepathy and give it the way it's owed. Because right now, she's just going along with it. She's like, okay, great. Telepathy, super. She doesn't even really comment on it. She's just like, oh yeah, I kind of know what telepathy is. What? Even if you kind of knew what telepathy was, would having it happen to you? I know what telepathy is. If Professor frickin' Xavier reached out and started talking to me right now and was like, hello, Junco, it's me, Professor Xavier. I want to invite you to my school for the gifted mutants. And I'd freak the heck out and I'd say, no thanks, bestie, I'm good. I'm going to go into a coma now. Actually, I don't... do not interact. Block. Does your social media site have a block function, Professor? Because I want out. Right? I don't know. I'm under the impression that if anyone were contacted by telepathy, they would freak the heck out. That is not a natural thing. Even for Teal, who maybe knows about magic, the sensation would be daunting, to say the least. The only other thing with this bit is that the sage's directions are really bad. That's it. That's all I have to say. The telepathy thing, yeah, that's a big deal. But also, hey, did you know the sage's directions, they're not good. Could you fix those? Thanks. So we backtrack a little bit. Come back with me. Come back. Let's take a few steps back. Tip, 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 tip. So we go back to the door, and I think it would be best if we even rearrange the sequence of events here. It is a little comical, but I think it works better if we change the sequence so that instead of Teal knowing about these invisible servants right up front, because basically what happens is the door swings open and the sage immediately tells Teal, oh yeah, sorry about that. That's my invisible people. That's the invisible people who work here. And instead of being told that up front, she should really experience more of these ghostly interactions. The door should swing open. Teal should enter this parlor and just see all of these floating things happen that kind of weird her out a little bit. This candelabra gets lit by itself. The door swings open and closes by itself. The chamber lights itself up. There's things floating around. We can add this injection of whimsy, have Teal be a little scared of it, and then be told, and then be contacted by the sage. The sage kind of explains the situation. Teal freaks out a little bit. Oh, there's a ghost talking in my head. That's great. The sage explains, no, it's okay, dummy. I'm talking to you through telepathy. Don't worry about it. Also, somebody's going to guide you to my study. Follow them, please. And this is all just so we can build up this idea that Teal's a little frazzled. All of this is ultimately harmless. None of it's going to harm Teal. but we need to emphasize the notion that she's not in the right mind. She's going a little insane, but also her nerves are pretty shot, right? These invisible people, under normal circumstances, Teal would probably be thinking, oh, haha, this is pretty whimsical. This is fun. In her current state, she would be thinking, I'm not having any of this, fam. I do not want floating candles and opening doors. Can you please just be normal for 3 seconds? I am so tired right now. I didn't want to spend energy on errant thoughts earlier. You think I want to spend energy on being scared about invisible people running around? They could be anywhere. What if they take my moth? And then what? I'll be doomed. Don't worry, girl. You're already doomed. The narrative's got you covered there. Another small beat here. Teal enters this parlor. It's really dark. Like I said, one of the servants lights a candle, which is fine, which is good. But we mentioned Teal can see pretty well in the dark, and we don't build up this notion at all really throughout the book. And this is just another, I think I mentioned it once before, that like, yeah, we should talk about how Teal can see in the dark, because it's kind of a thing, because she's a half-elf, right? We need to do some world building here. And this is just me saying, yeah, we should bring it up sooner. As early as chapter 22, right, where Teal is in the forest, where it's dark and in the forest, but even earlier, Teal's in that dark tent with the oracle. It might even be dark in the monastery, and Teal's kind of like looking around, okay? We can even have a bit in the monastery where the saint lights some candles so that they can see better. And Teal's just like, oh yeah, I guess you need to do that, don't you? I guess you, a human, need light to see in the dark. You know, like I can see all right if it's dim, but, yeah. So this should just be a place where, yes, we bring it up. Yes, we mentioned Teal can see in the dark all right. Lacrimosa's glow is more than enough light, is more than ample luminance for Teal. But you can't see I'm waving my hand at the screen. Sorry, I forgot. I'm not like a regular... I only translate certain actions such as bob up and down and wave and think and hee. But I digress. We just need to explain this point a little better. We could do that by, like I just said, explaining here. We kind of mention it in passing that Lacrimosa's light is here in the darkness, and Teal should have a beat here of like, oh, no, it's okay. I brought my own light. I've got my own. My lamp is fine. I got Lacrimosa. Lacrimosa's on point. They got it on lock. It's okay. I'm good. Yeah, anyway, sorry. I was going to say something, but I think I bring it up later. Teal does follow this candle bearer over to like an elevator. And that's cool. That's great. But the elevator really lacks placement in this scene. We don't get a good sense of where it is. We also don't get told really what it looks like, what it's doing, what its properties are. It has very little description altogether. There's this important beat about there being a lever inside of the lift. And like also that doesn't have good description, but we should use that as having foreshadowing. We should foreshadow a little bit here, because another important lever comes up in about 10 chapters, about 9 chapters to be specific. And just something to plant in the ground here, that Teal, upon entering this lift, has this odd sense of foreboding regarding this lever. She doesn't really want to touch it. In fact, like maybe she even lingers beside it so long that the servant just operates it for her. But just something to take note of. The lift here should be placed within the space very concretely. It should occupy volume within this realm. And if it's going to do that, hey, let's talk about what it looks like. Right now, it's kind of, I just say, yeah, it's a lift, it's an elevator, expecting people to really understand what it looks like. But I don't talk about what it should look like. And that's another of my many failures as a writer. So Teal starts ascending the lift, and that's great, and that's good. We can use this, her ascension through the building, to heighten her fascination with the interior. This should be a segment where Teal has a bit of an aside, where we're still experiencing Teal as a character who is very fascinated by architecture. who is reveling in all of these interior design details like the big nerd she is. There's a period where she's transitioning through the second story, and I just thought as a nice little beat of character building, maybe she stoops, maybe she leans over to try to glimpse a few fractions of a second more of the space to really take it all in. This works in tandem, right? Like I just said, it builds Teal as a better character, but we also don't have a great sense of what the building's like on the inside right now. And I think that's really unfortunate because this should be a place of whimsy. Like I mentioned, this should be a really fascinating locale for Teal and the readers. We've not really had a good interior dialogue for quite some time. And in fact, this is the second last one. I guess you could argue that everywhere is an interior dialogue, but I digress. We just need to build the space better, describe it better, linger on the details a little more, describe the furniture, the walls, the ceilings, what have you. Any details that are relevant that evoke this sense of wonder, this... I guess in a sense we're trying to build a space that is both lavish and homey, that is magical and charming, all while kind of awing Teal at the same time. And that's difficult to do when you don't talk about the space. So, hey, me from the future, could you talk about the Sage's Tower a little more while Teal's going through the inside? That'd be great. Thanks. Here's where we hit upon the point, right? There is a very distinct lack of consistency regarding Teal's exhaustion. It should be tied in. Like I mentioned with the garden, right? We need to tie in her exhaustion. Here too, while she's observing the space, we need to talk about how tired she is. We need to stitch in that her observations are being broken up by her energy just not matching her interest level. And I get why we do this right now. I understand that we're skipping over how tired she is because we want to describe how impressed she is by this space. But really, we lose so much by just dropping one of these concepts in favor for another. I know it's tricky to juggle them both, but I think ultimately if we can balance both beats, it will read better. Right now, we're just dropping that Teal's tired because, she's looking at cool things, right? That's not how it works. You can be miserable and exhausted at the coolest museum of your life. Trust me, I've done it. I've done it a lot. It sucks. It's a terrible feeling to be full of wonder and just not have the energy to explore it. It's terrible. And that's kind of what we're going for here. Teal should be wowed and impressed and enthralled by all that she sees, but she just does not have it in her to give the space, the enthusiasm she wishes she could. And like I say here, later on, we start even dimming her observations. We start writing her as if she's becoming so tired that she can't keep up. She can't keep doing her usual rigmarole of looking and being interested and having observations here, there, and everywhere. And frankly, that would just read better if we build up to it. Right now, we kind of just get to that point and it's like a flip is switched. Teal's tired now. Teal gets to be tired. She talked to the sage, boop, she gets to be tired again. Let's hit the tired switch so that Teal can be relevantly expressing the conditions of her being. Let's tie it in here. Let's sprinkle the tiredness throughout the chapter instead of just having it flick on when we need to and turning it off when we don't. That's dumb. That's stupid. That's not how people work. So Teal does eventually get up to the third floor. She gets up to the third story, and the description of it is serviceable right now, but going forward we can do a lot better. The room that she ends up in, let me scroll ahead here. I'm kind of behind. I think I've gone a little too far, but I'll stop there. So the room that she ends up in is kind of this whimsical space. It's got this stand-up piano. It's got this beautiful chaise lounge. It's sort of this sprawling, homey environment, as if somebody had created a den away from the main space that they live in. Sort of as if they have a room where, I want to spend time in the room that is not like the rest of the house. Let's have dinner in the den tonight, sort of thing, right? Like when you're just kind of sick of eating in the dining room day in and day out, you have a different room for it. When you want to go host your guests in a different room, okay, well, let's take tea in the den. This might be the room where the sage plays their piano, or maybe they stand out here and look out the balcony out towards the hills. Who knows? But we don't describe any of that. We don't really get into any of it. We need to show that Teal is awed by what she sees, and I know that's going to be tricky because we just talked about how tired she is, but that's how evocative this room should be. How much wonder it should instill in her. That there's just this beautiful, intricate, decadent furniture hanging out all over the place. These beautiful landscape paintings. The walls are adorned with intricate, delicate, detailed wallpaper. All sorts of things. The trim, the floorboards, the age of the space, the lighting. We don't even touch on that. What's the lighting like? Is there a chandelier in here or something? Are there lamps? Who knows? Maybe there's like a display cabinet full of oddities and curios. We don't get into any of that. Why not? Come on, let's work on it. And something subtle, something alongside that we need to mention is that there is this weird ersatz sense of life to the space. We mentioned that one of the servants is clearly playing the piano because it looks as if this piano is playing itself. I think we mentioned here too that it seems as if some of these servants are cleaning right now, as if they're moving things around, they're organizing, they're stacking books, they're cleaning up the place, right? And we just need to dig into it. We need to dig into the sense that, yes, there is movement here, but it ultimately feels like a room that is not lived in. In fact, the whole space that Teal has been occupying has this weird sense to it. That, sure, it's a building and it's clean and it's nice, but all she gets is the sense that, yeah, there's movement here, but I'm not. Where's the life? Where is everyone? What's going on here? I keep losing my mouse, sorry. If you see this, it's because I've lost the mouse. It's very easy to do. It's very tiny. It's very small, and I have to keep it off of the screen because if I keep it over here, it'll do the dumb, I'm going to print on the document thing. Oops, I've scrolled a little too far. Also here, sorry, let me get rid of this. Yep. There, that helps a little bit. And ultimately, I'm catching myself sooner this episode. What we're building towards here is that we want to display the Sage's Tower as being somewhere lonely. Despite the activity in the building, it's a lonely place. Even Teal can understand that, seeing this and just this impression of like, okay, yeah, there's activity here, but where is everyone? It's quiet. There's no footfalls. It doesn't sound like people are chatting in the next room. There's not this sense that, yes, people are living here too. It's just the sense that there is life here, I guess, for what it's worth. There's movement. There's stuff going on. Things are happening, but it's not life, is it? That's a philosophical debate for another time, but that's kind of the sentiment we're going for here. We want to make the space feel lonely. Some of what the servants do, and this runs in parallel with what we're just talking about, some of what the servants do should be dwelled upon a little more. For example, the song that is playing upon the piano isn't really mentioned at all. Why don't we describe what the song sounds like? Maybe it's an important beat. Maybe this is an important thing that Teal hears. She hasn't heard music in a long time. Wouldn't she be taken aback by a song playing on a lonely piano? We can even maybe be a little sinister here and have these notes sound familiar to Teal. She might have a moment where she's humming along and thinking, that's weird. How do I recognize that song? I don't think I've ever heard it before. It could just be a fun beat to play with, but nonetheless, not only just the piano, but the cleaning, the tidying, the organization. We need to describe these with a bit more detail so that we can build them up as not acts of life, but acts that happen within the tower to falsify life. Teal proceeds. She follows a servant down this catwalk towards the study. And it's on this catwalk that we should take a little more time to build up the landscape surrounding the tower. Teal right now kind of pauses. She looks out the sides of this catwalk and she observes the surroundings and she kind of just moves on with her life. But from this vantage, she would be able to see quite a lot. She would be able to see quite a bit of the building's exterior too that she didn't get to take note of when she was too tired outside, when she was waiting for the doors to open. It's during these observations of the landscape, of what she sees out beyond, that Teal would, and I'm skipping forward a little bit here, pardon me. Teal has this little beat where she's making these references to, or rather she isn't, sorry. I'm getting myself confused. I should read my notes better instead of opening my face. What I'm trying to say here, we don't have very much mention of Lacrimosa, outside of Teal briefly referencing them as being under her cloak at one point. And this would be a good beat. This would be a great beat for Teal to have these observations and speak them to Lacrimosa, to envelop Lacrimosa into the scene. They've had very little presence throughout the chapter, and this would be a good time for Teal to be looking out across the landscape and maybe feeling a little lonely. Maybe it starts to dawn on her that these invisible servants are kind of confusing in their being, in their livelihood. But then, yeah, Teal's definitely convinced that the little moth in the lantern at her belt is more or less a sentient companion. So she's definitely going to start chatting them up. Going to be like, oh, wow, yeah, the mountains out there sure look menacing. These hills sure are getting tall, Lacrimosa. I wonder, does it look like it's still raining, buddy? Haha, right? Like, I don't know. I'm definitely being silly here, but she should talk to him. She needs to mention Lacrimosa, or at least direct her focus towards them so that the readers know, yes, Lacrimosa's still here. Teal still cares about them, by the way. Now we can move on. There's a funny idea here that we can incorporate a gag, as if she's talking to Lacrimosa. Teal's talking to Lacrimosa because she's starting to feel lonely. And halfway through her conversation, she could notice that there's very evidently a servant standing nearby. Just like, I don't know, maybe it's the servant cleaning and they're just standing there with a feather duster. And like, it's very evident that they turn towards Teal, that the feather duster faces Teal all of a sudden. And Teal's just taken aback, like, oh no, I wasn't talking to you. Sorry, you see, there's a bug. There's a moth in my, you know what, just forget it, actually. Have a good day. And this is funny, but it does serve a purpose that we are incorporating Lacrimosa into the narrative. And we're also building this notion that Teal is just willing to openly talk to Lacrimosa, that she does consider them her friend. And on a third note, we're reinforcing the idea that Teal's definitely going a little insane here, and she's way too tired to explain herself to one of these servants. She's going a little loopy and she knows it, and she just can't be bothered. Listen, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm just going to keep going. Yes, I'm talking to a moth. Mind your own business. Have a good day. So Teal finally gets into the study, and we do a pretty good job describing the space, but as we did before, we lose Teal along the way. We don't place her in space very well. She enters the room, and then what? Right? It's like she's playing VR chat, and she's just teleporting all over the room. She's playing a VR game, and she puts the little cursor on the ground over, and she boop, teleports over. That's not cool. That's great if you're playing a VR game. Teal ain't no VR game. She's walking around. Let's put her in space. Let's have her travel around this area. She can experience different things as she tours the space, as she descends the ramp, as she comes to the window, as she inspects the railing, right? We can build the space more organically and with more detail and have it feel like an actual location if Teal is a part of it. And we're just dropping that ball right now. Right? Why doesn't she stop and look around? Why doesn't she lean on this railing that's nearby? As she enters, she's sort of on like the floor above, and then there's a ramp that descends to the floor below. That ramp and the balcony have a railing on them. We don't really talk about them at all. What's going on there? We're trying to build, once again, to build the sense that Teal is engaged, but she's too tired to fully evoke her senses. She really wants to inspect all that there is to this lavish manor, but she just doesn't have the energy right now. She's getting too tired. As I mentioned, there's this huge window in the study, this like 2-story window that overlooks the landscape. And we really fumble here with, we don't grasp at the opportunity. We have this great chance to describe the landscape out beyond the window, and we do a little bit, right? We mention it's there, but we can use this moment to reinforce the beat so much stronger, pardon me. For example, Teal should be seeing the mountains in the distance, these soft mountains. And she does right now. She does see them. They're there, but why not linger on them? What of the vegetation, right? What do things look like? Are there still trees here? Are there still forests? Are there still patches of foliage? I don't know. What about beyond the hills? What about the mountains that lie beyond? What about the atmosphere between it all? What of the color? What of the density? We should be using this as a moment to foreshadow where Teal is going to proceed to. We don't need to linger on it. We don't need to say, oh, wow, those mountains out there sure are scary. We don't need to have a Disney moment. We're not callous, and we respect our readers in this household. But let's nod at it a little bit. Let's mention it's there so that later on when Teal is going through the mountain, the readers are like, oh yeah, didn't she see that? Didn't she see those mountains from the Sage's Tower? She did, bestie, she did. Yes, good job. You remembered. Good work. This would be a great moment for Teal's ears to start ringing again. That's just another little addition. We really fell off. We mentioned it at the start that her ears are ringing, but yes, once again, much like her lethargy, the insanity and the physical ailments that are accompanying it, they've also fallen off. This would be another great spot to mention the weather. We kind of mentioned, oh yeah, it's drizzling. Okay. I think this would be a good time to mention that the atmosphere is getting colder. There should be a very subtle shift in the drizzle that was happening earlier and what's occurring in the present and what's going to occur later on. As Teal's traveling along, things are going to get colder. And it's here that she's at the Sage that she should note, oh, the droplets are kind of starting to look more like sleet. They're getting wispier. We need to have this change in weather, this decrease in temperature, match the increase in dreariness, or I guess it would work in, what's that called? It would be the opposite of. It would work in something. There's a turn of phrase for that. Anyways, whatever. It get colder because landscape get drearier. Understand? You understand? Yes, good. Think good. Very good. Yes, sorry to say that in regular talk. We should be building up this idea that things are getting colder as Teal travels along. And here, at kind of this midpoint at the Sage's Tower, things should be shifting a little bit. This is a transitionary zone. We are in an ecotone, and the weather should reflect that. Thank you, bestie. Please make that more apparent going forward. It's at this point where Teal is really sinking into her thoughts by the window. Let me scroll along here. It's in this moment that she really should be ripped out of her reverie, that she should be drawn from her observations by what the sage is doing nearby. They're making tea, so we can describe like the clank of pots and cups, of spoons and what have you. And it should be here, when Teal's attention is drawn to them, that the sage should make their introduction. Right now, the sage just kind of like shoves himself into Teal's life. And that's not bad. Like, it's all fine. It's all serviceable. But I think it would be better if we bring Teal out of the moment and then the sage introduces himself. And then we can kind of even describe it like, yep, the sage was making noise for a reason. They were trying to get Teal's attention, and then they introduced themselves. So it's important to note that the sage is in a wheelchair. And it's important to note because it's something we should really never bring up very overtly. Obviously, we want to describe the way they move and the way they act and the way they exist in space as being within a wheelchair, but it should never be that big of a deal. It should always just be like, okay, yeah, that's how they are. That's just how it is. They are in a wheelchair. Suddenly it makes sense as to why there's a ramp going down to the study, right? It's not a big deal. It's just like, oh yeah, suddenly things are in place. Okay, they're in a wheelchair. Great, ding. It should be an important note that is ultimately, there I did it again, that culminates a pretty common one too, that ends up being a non-issue. I've probably said that a bunch as well. Oh well. Gotta just keep going. Ultimately, we must culminate. And in the end, we just gotta keep going. And this is all just to reinforce the idea that Teal doesn't think anything of it. Teal sees the sage in a wheelchair and she's just like, okay, yep, that's the sage. She's just meeting someone, right? There's nothing more to it for Teal. It's also during this little segment here that the sage should should appraise Teal more astutely. We need to build this idea that the sage is actually a very keen individual. And part of that should be right now, they should be judging her a little bit on her attire. The fact that she's carrying around a banjo and a big old lantern on her hip. She looks pretty scuffed up, but she's clearly wearing these super, maybe not super fancy, but these high-end bespoke clothes. She's also got on this big dorky hat. So we should get this idea that the sage takes note of who Teal is physically before they start appraising her, probing her mind through conversation. So there's a scene here where the sage conjures a chair for Teal to sit in. And there's two notes that go in tandem with that. The first one is that we really don't get a good sense for the chair itself. We do a bunch of describing about the magic, about how it manifests, about how the magic works and the visual effects accompanying the magic. That's good, right? But how does the chair appear? How is it manifested? What does it look like? We don't get anything. We don't talk about that at all. If we're going to talk about how a chair appears out of thin air, we should definitely talk about the chair, fam. And I don't have a great I don't have a great notion, a great solution for how to describe the chair manifesting out of thin air, but we should talk about it. We should mention it. I don't know if maybe like little bubbles form and come together to make the shape of the chair, or maybe the outline of the chair appears first and then it's filled in by like some spectral nonsense. I don't know. Whatever you want, whatever sounds cool, do it. But do it, right? Don't just leave it out, dummy. I've done it again. Look at this. Oh no. A second faux pas. Goodness, how unprofessional of me. These are second level points and they must be green. We must rectify this issue at once. I will not stand for it. You also see like Open Office's green is different from Microsoft green. Anyways, second point. And you got to bear with me. You got to stick with me on this one. Because, oops. Come on now. You gotta stick with me here. Because why? Because it'll make more sense at the end. That's why. It'll make more sense as we go through it. So when the sage does their magic casting here, there is no vocal component to the magic. And later on in the book, we make it very apparent that casting magic requires a vocal component. As it stands, we really get away with waving our hands here, with waving our wand, so to speak, and the sage just casts whatever. We don't even know what they cast, really, but they just wave a hand, and it's like, okay, the chair's here now. Isn't magic great? Isn't it awesome? It is, but we have to follow the rules. We must follow the rules, if you will. But this should be a point, right? We can keep this idea that the sage doesn't utter a vocal component, but we should use it to emphasize that Teal is mystified by it. Teal should bring up that, hey, how did you do that? How did you cast that spell without a vocal component? We're going to do this so that we can build the rules of magic casting. We can build Teal as a character who understands those rules. We can envelop her into that world, all in one go. And proceeding this will give the sage a wonderful beat that will build them as a character too. Their reply to this offer, right? Because that's really what Teal is doing here. Teal's offering them a chance to explain themselves, and in doing so is offering us as readers an in to her knowledge of the arcane, to the world's knowledge of the arcane. And the sage's reply here is going to, keep them in pace. We're going to know in an instant that the sage knows those rules and is going to explain why they broke those rules. In doing so, the sage's reply should be pedagogical. There we go. That's how you say that word. Pedagogical. Should be scholarly. They should be replying as if they're trying to teach Teal something. And we're trying to do this because we want to reinforce the idea that maybe the sage was a teacher. Maybe that's part of the reason they want to take Teal on as an apprentice, and it's not just like a weird kind of thing. It's like they actually have a reason to do it because teaching people is what they've done their whole life. Maybe an individual with the moniker the sage is pretty good at teaching people. I don't know. That's just a personal thing. That's just, who knows? Right. And in this way, in this manner of having the sage describe magic and the rules of magic and how they broke the rules of magic, is going to build the world around the book, right? Because the world around the book is mostly just a framing device. We don't actually get to it right now. But it's going to build that frame really well, and it's going to do it in a very subtle and intriguing way. We lost viewer number 2 again. Goodbye, viewer number 2. It was wonderful having you here. You stuck it out for over an hour. Hands off to you. Hats off to you even. I don't have a hat, so I could take my hands off if I went into my model and remove them. But I digress. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one, viewer number 2. What was I saying? Magic. Yeah. Doing this just, it incorporates the entire, well, not the entire, but a very core aspect of magical casting for the reader. This would also be a good moment for Teal to start plying the sage with questions. We can get like a bit of an off-kilter beat that, of all the things that Teal has experienced thus far, this is the one that excites her to a point where she can ignore her exhaustion. She's so enthralled by magic and what the sage is able to pull off here that she's completely just, full of energy. She's hitting the caffeine. She's hyped up. And this is all just to shift the idea of the introduction here. I want their introduction to be a little more wholesome, to be a little more bonding. Right now, they're kind of just talking, and it's very amicable and it's very good, but I want them to sort of bond immediately here so that by the end, when Teal is refusing their offer, spoiler alert, I mean, we already went through the chapter summary. When Teal is low-key refusing their offer to become their apprentice, it kind of hurts a bit because Teal is building this bond with the sage. Oh man, we are definitely going to be running over 2 hours here. I apologize for how much there is to talk about, but it needs to be done. Okay, so Teal and the sage are properly talking. You know what? I actually got to take a sip of water. Okay, that ought to keep me going for a little while. So, yeah, they do start talking. And one of the first things they start talking about is, obviously it kind of makes sense, right? Because Teal calls them out. Teal calls the sage out here and says like, whoa, hey, you're doing magic. How did you do that? So almost immediately, the sage knows that, oh, you must know what magic is. But they take that and they jump too far with it. They come to this really strange and sudden conclusion that Teal must have a lot of aptitude for magic. But they have so little to go off. If they're having this conversation, right, if they're having this little beat about Teal being very overt about how she knows of the rules of casting, then sure, the sage can jump into the deep end and have a little more to go off based on Teal's aptitude for magic. But as it stands right now, they're really just leaping to conclusions. They're just coming to weird, strange, it almost feels as if they're suggesting like, oh, Teal must be a very gifted student of magic. Where do you get that conclusion, my guy? She is not cast. She has barely talked about where she went to school. What's going on in that wizened brain of yours? If they are going to come to a conclusion, like I just said, if we're going to go through the other route, we need to have their assumptions backed up with some sort of evidence. That, or if they are going to make this very presumptive claim, it should be more bold. Sorry, it should be bolder. I forgot that's the comparative there. It should be a bolder claim. Something that they're basing off of their intuition. We need to either have the sage present some reasoning, as if saying, well, your reaction to what I cast gives me a hint that you must know that you're more than you're letting on. Or they should base it off of some bias, such as seeing Teal's pointy hat and her strange cloak and her very obviously long and not so subtle dagger at her hip that is, maybe not the best for defending oneself. Why are you only carrying a dagger if you are not a wizard? Are you a rogue or something? Even a rogue carries more than just one dagger on their person. This is just a small little note that the sage should use more academic wording when they speak. We build up later on that there is a very concrete wording based off of Greek that is used within the magical community. The realms of the arcane, as they're known so far. And this is just like one interpretation of them. We even get in that segment that Teal kind of frowns at them and is like, why don't they use the elvish terms? These stupid human ones don't make any sense. And they're hard to pronounce. So we should get a bit of the sage knowing, right? Because if the sage is part of that same academic community, if the sage is admitting they're a wizard, hello, I'm a wizard, I can cast magic, hello, to another person that they think is probably a wizard, then they're going to use the wizard jargon, right? They're not just going to be using glib remarks here. They're going to be saying, oh yes, this is cosmoplasy or thermoplasy or something, right? They're going to be using the rigid academic terms when describing what they're doing, because they have a good sense that Teal will know exactly what they're talking about if they use that terminology. Okay. Yeah, so let's move on, right? They keep talking, they talk about magic, they talk about magic schools, and this first part here where the sage is talking about magic, that's good. But a lot of what they reveal here regarding the space that the two occupy presently, it's kind of just useless. It really doesn't have any weight or value. This segment overall, it just feels kind of thin. Like, why are they trying to describe this? What relevance does it hold? I think it's important. I think it's really relevant that we describe, that we lend logic to the idea that yes, Teal cannot cast here. Teal has a poor perception of what she should be used to because it's tenuous, because it doesn't exist in this space very well. But Teal should be asking more questions here. We should be fleshing out the world a little bit better here, because we really don't get a great chance to do this anywhere else. She's meeting with an academic of solid rapport, and she's not asking them questions. I know she's supposed to be tired, she's supposed to be listless, but this is why you came here. You're trying to figure things out, and you're really not asking this venerable elder for answers? Come on, Teal. Get your head in the game. Pretend you're a wildcat. Get your head in the game. So just, there's not really a great solution to this, but make the content that the sage reveals to Teal more valuable. That's all I can really tell myself in the future. Just, this needs to happen. It needs to be something that the sage tells Teal, but it needs to be more relevant in regards to the world building, in regards to the world at large. We don't need the sage to say, oh, the magic here is thin because of this, right? But we need to tie that idea into the world better and have the sage present it as like a core concept. Teal talks about her schooling. And in draft 2, this is probably going to be where a lot of these thoughts spawn, where a lot of these ties to her previous life in academia crop up. We really haven't had the chance, especially in draft 2, to get into that, and this is probably where a bit more of it can spawn from. I'm hoping that in draft 2 we dwell on these ideas a little more, that we pull them up every so often, that Teal is kind of thinking about like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure I went to school. I don't remember what I did, but I remember there was a building, and I definitely went to classes, and I'm pretty sure I learned magic. And it should be here that we start to finally get at something more solid, that we're starting to reveal the end result of all of her musing. This last note, sorry, I don't even know why I've included this now that I'm rereading it. They come to this point where they realize they're being really nosy, the sage, rather. The sage is plying Teal with all of these questions about where she maybe went to school, about what she learned, what she studied. And the sage comes to this point where they realize, oh, I'm being really nosy, sorry, I'm being kind of rude. And that's kind of an important thing that they come to. And it's good that we are showing that they're interested in Teal, that they're interested in her former studies. And it should stay as a beat. That's all I'm really saying. This should stay as a beat because it's good. It gives this conversation a pause so that we can transition into the next part. We'll get to the next part in a minute, but we described that Teal is starting to sag in her seat, that she's bowing from her exhaustion, that she's really having a tough time sitting upright. And man, she's wearing a big hat. How many times do we got to talk about this hat throughout this book? Teal's hat is massive, okay? If she's going to start slouching in the chair, the hat should react to the movement, okay? If she's going to start slumping, then yeah, that hat's going to bend forward. It's going to tilt forward. It's going to cover her eyes and most of her face. And this should be a point. This should be an awkward moment. Teal should look like a fool doing this, but she shouldn't care because she's just so tired. Right? So just remember it. Keep that in mind. Teal has a physical body, And on top of that, she's wearing clothing that part of it extends beyond her. Teal has a physical cloth aura around her head. It's gonna bump into things. She's usually pretty careful about it, but in instances like this where she's slouched in a chair, guess what that hat's gonna do? This is another small aside, but we should use this point to acknowledge. Oh geez, I really slumped on that one. Catch me slouching in my chair just like Teal, because I'm exhausted. I've been talking for an hour 40 straight. We're only like 2/3 of the way done. This is definitely going over 2 hours. I apologize. For those who like to hear me ramble for a long time, I guess you're winning today. You won the lottery. You won the Junco Snow Lottery, where you get to hear me yammer on for a long time. Congrats. I myself have to suffer. I must continue in my pain. This would be a great spot to acknowledge Lacrimosa. Teal's tired. She can just look down at them, right? She set the lantern on the floor beside the chair. She can just look down to them, stare at them a little bit, wonder what they're doing. Maybe she even wonders what they're thinking, just to connect Lacrimosa with this chapter. Because like I said, they're really not featured very much, and it's very unfortunate because come to the end of the chapter, we have this really sweet moment with Lacrimosa that just has zero payoff because Lacrimosa hasn't been here. So come on, bring that moth back in here. Get the moth in here. Come on. This next point is me just saying like, hey, the lethargy that Teal is experiencing here is what we should be building towards. This is the point where I flick the switch and I go, yeah, the tiredness comes back. Great. This is where we should be building to. This is where we should be stitching in all of those notes that Teal comes to this point and she's hit the point of no return. She's just like so tired, right? And it's especially poetic because they're talking about the bell tower right now. But build up to this point. Let's get to it, right? Like Teal is definitely tired here. Why was she not tired earlier? Why was she not exhausted when she was talking about magic in her school? Why was she not being forlorn and staid and tepid while she was looking out the window earlier? Why was she following that servant pretty effortlessly, right? We need to start digging at the idea that Teal is really basically just struggling to do everything at this point. She's hitting that level 3, level 4 exhaustion. She's getting to where it's rough, right? She's got that movement penalty. She's got the disadvantage on all of her ability checks. Let's emphasize that. Let's make it an apparent point. It should become apparent by the end of this chapter that the more she needles at the sage, the more she's trying to pry information out of him. Every attempt, sorry, I said him, I meant them. Every attempt she takes to do this, every effort she puts in should be one that drains her just a little bit more until we get to the end of the chapter and Teal is just a mess. Teal is just a ragged little pile of half-elf goop. I said goop, by the way, not something else. Don't be dirty. So, right, they start talking about the bell tower. Teal starts asking them, or rather the sage pries Teal and is like, why are you here? And Teal admits, I want to know more about the bell tower. And as it stands right now, the sage is a little reluctant to tell Teal. They basically say, like, I don't think you'll like what I have to tell you. But there should be more reluctance and also more curiosity when Teal reveals that she's here to learn about the bell tower. They at the same time should be interested in why Teal wants to know, but also they don't want to tell Teal anything they want to hear. Anything she wants to hear regarding the bell tower. There's a note here about, like, whatever, subtext. Teal asks, why am I here? And we can build the subtext as to, like, why am I here, right? More existential. But as far as the sage goes, they need to pump the brakes on why they just come off too willing. They're just too willing to divulge their information here. And they should be almost scared, almost a little frightened. They don't want to tell Teal because they know, oh, this isn't good information to hear. And if I tell you, you might still want to go, and I really don't want you to leave because you're one of the only people I've ever talked to who knows about magic, and I could maybe apprentice you, and I could maybe make my time here worthwhile. Teal does a really garbage job here describing the bell tower, and that sucks. She doesn't really mention anything. I can't even criticize her very much because she just doesn't describe it at all. She should at least exemplify how its tone, how the sound of the bell still lingers with her, how it's almost haunting her. And that's really all she knows of it, but she knows it so clearly. And she should maybe describe it as something that if I could describe, if I could give you the sound that is constantly reverberating in my head, then I'm certain you would know of the tower, you know, the one I'm talking about, the tower of which I speak. And she can try her best here, right? She can describe the sound and try to evoke that sensation, but she doesn't. She doesn't do anything right now. She's just like, yeah, the bell tower, you know, the one that's far away. Okay, great. Oh, super. Do you know how many bell towers there are, probably? You know? Did the city not have bell towers? Maybe that's something we should bring up. Maybe we should bring up that there were bell towers in the city. You know, red herrings. But Teal wants that one particular bell tower, the one that is haunting her. Because it has such a distinct tone and resonance that no matter where one is, one might hear it from across the land. Sorry if that picked up. I was moving my mic a little bit. I shouldn't do that. I know from experience that my mic picks up basically everything, so I should just not touch it. But yeah, Teal drops the ball. Great. Hate that for her. So they start talking about the bell tower, and the sage reveals, yes, I've actually been studying it. I've been researching the bell tower. And like I mentioned, they are a little reluctant to tell Teal what they know, but we don't get into anything regarding the why. Why are they studying this tower? How are they studying this tower? Why is that information left out? Those are pertinent points. Those are essential. When someone tells you they're studying something, you want to know for what reason and how they're doing it. If somebody tells you they're studying trees by licking them, you know that that individual is maybe a little bonkers. I'm sure there's some credit in licking a tree, but we also don't have the why. They're studying trees by licking them to find out which one tastes the best. And all right, bestie, you pop off. Go get them, Oomphy. Let us know which tree tastes the best, but anyone with a sound mind will not recognize that as academic research. And so throughout here, we need to say why the sage and how the sage is researching the bell, because right now it's just a very flippant remark. It has no weight whatsoever. And that's dumb. It really, you know, if we're trying to paint the sage as being this academic individual, this scholarly teacher of sorts, then they should have some credibility behind their reasoning. You know, like, do they have tomes about the bell tower? Have they written about the bell tower? Maybe they put the tomes together about the bell tower, but something, anything. Have they listened to gossip? Have they invited individuals from far off to interrogate them, to interview them regarding the bell tower? Have they ever seen the bell tower? Have they ever, like, surely they've heard it, right? Surely they've heard it. They mention nothing of any of this. If we're going to build the sage up as knowing about the bell tower, then let's talk about how and why they know about the bell tower. Great. Good. Let's move on. There's this weird note. The sage offers Teal information, but they put it in a way that they'll only tell Teal if Teal will listen to the sage's ultimatum. And Teal at forced. Ah, jeez. This 2-hour mark's really wearing away at me. Teal, at first, thinks they want to strike a deal. And it's in this moment that she has this very, I'm gonna go as far as to use the word seditious. It almost makes me a little sick that she has this moment where she considers, I would trade Lacrimosa for information. The bestie, the optics of, and she doesn't say it, she just hints at it a little bit. She like looks to her belongings and thinks, well, I could trade away my things, but I'm not so sure, right? Like she doesn't completely buy into the idea, but the fact she thinks it at all, yuck, gross, girl. You like we're trying to build this idea that you and this moth are inherently linked together by the red thread of fate. And you just go sell your moth. You trade that moth for 1 seed. How's the original go? You trade that moth for 1 donut. I don't think that's even the original. I'd sell you to Satan for 1 donut. Isn't that it? I forget. That's neither here nor there. Yeah, the optics here are just really bad. She should not even consider that in the slightest. She could maybe reasonably trade the banjo. She might think about that, but she would not even consider getting rid of Lacrimosa. That kind of, even the consideration of such would sicken her. Maybe she even says something. Maybe she gets pretty defensive with the sage. Maybe she even utters like, I'm sorry, whatever you have to tell me is not worth my belongings. My companion here, Lacrimosa, is far too important to me than any information could be. If you aren't going to tell me directly, then we shall leave at once. Good day. Oh. So, okay, right. So the sage ends up telling Teal about the tower. That's great. They say it's west of here. Why? It's really unnecessary. We want to continue this theme of vagueness. We need to rip that cardinal direction right out of here and throw it in the bin. Get rid of it. As long as we say it's lying within the mountain, it's beyond the foothills, it's out there somewhere. The sage knows what direction it's in. They can even just say, as long as you follow the trail, you will get there. The trail leads to the bell tower, which is weird. Maybe that's even part of why the sage is puzzled by the bell tower. Why does this trail lead directly to it? Isn't that kind of strange? Isn't that odd? It definitely is, but we never mention it. Nor does the sage, the utmost intellectual on bell towers. Why don't they ever point out that there is a trail leading directly to the weird thing that Teal is looking for? They describe the area, they describe the bell tower fine, all of those details are good, but we just need to take the prompt of giving Teal a direction out of here. I think originally I had thought, okay, well, Teal needs something more solid to go on. This is a point where she's getting valuable information, but she's getting valuable information. We just don't have to tell the readers. We can keep the readers in the dark. Teal just knows it's out there. She knows it's in the mountains, and she can even be kind of confused because it's not until she finds the actual tower that she's standing in front of it, much like the sages, that she goes, oh, this place actually exists. Huh, I didn't think I would get here. I thought I would have been dead by now. More on that joke later. But saying it's west, that's stupid. Just have the sage say vaguely where it is, and Teal can be content with that. Teal is tired throughout here, but her questions regarding the tower should crop up regardless. This is the object of her desire. It is the thing she's been searching for so long. And she's just kind of tepidly sitting there and letting the info dump happen. She should be more active in this conversation. Teal needs to ask questions, and the sage will provide the answers, right? This will ultimately make this segment more of a conversation and less of an info dump. we can have Teal be tired still, as if she's struggling throughout this, as if she's really having a tough time stitching together ideas and interrogating the sage. But the sage should be here, right, as a source of information for Teal. And Teal should push herself through her lethargy to get to those questions so that she can receive the answers. We can get all of this information and all of this. Why are you researching the bell tower? How are you researching? How do you know these things? What do you know about these things? Through Teal actively engaging in conversation and the sage reciprocating. It's just really disappointing that this, of all points in the book, is just a big info dump. Nobody really likes that. And while you're distracted, while no one's paying attention to the bottom of their screen, I am going to just, don't look down here. Don't watch what I'm doing. Don't look. I didn't do anything. All over. Where were we? Ha 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 hee hee. You're all looking great today. You're all doing a good job. We're almost done, I promise. We're definitely going over 2 hours, but we're gonna make it through. We're on page 9. I think we're going on page 10 here. So no info dump. We don't like info dumps here. The sage mentions that part of the research is sending people out to go look at the bell tower. And this is just an idea I had on how they would do that, on how they would go about that in a logical manner. And what I came up with is that they probably give each of the, they contract individuals to go to the bell tower, essentially is what they've done. None of them have come back, though. And part of the solution we can do here, because the problem is that the sage has sent these people back, or has sent these people out to the tower. None of them have come back. Then how does the sage know so much about the tower? An aspect of that should be to kind of have a middleman, to have the sage able to gather information, but also have these contracted individuals the individuality to maybe just disappear on their own accord. And part of that line of thought, I was thinking, would be that the sage gives these contracted mercenaries something of a magical notebook. And they instruct them, listen, you write in this, you leave here, you go to the bell tower, and you write all of your observations in this book. Part of the book's magic is that it sends a copy of whatever they've written to a tome in the sage's possession. These notes then can be very elucidating for the sage. It can be why they know such intimate details regarding the tower and its surrounding areas, about the dangers that maybe lurk, about this can reinforce why they're maybe afraid that something has happened to these people. Because as it stands right now, they basically say, I hired people and I promised them a bunch of money if they came back with their research, but none of them did. The sage is really going off a hunch at best right now. And that's not good enough. The sage is a wise and prudent individual who is given to facts and logic. They would want to know why these people are disappearing. And if not, they would want to have some vague understanding as to what's going on out there that is causing people to disappear, to not come back for their just reward, for their due diligence. Some of them might even allude very particularly to future individuals who we have censored. We have thus censored so that there's no spoilers. And unfortunately, right, I'm saying all of this, but a lot of this would be things that the sage would withhold from Teal. They would definitely tell her that, yep, that tower is guarded. There's something out there, but they wouldn't be as forthcoming with the extent of their knowledge as to not frighten the girl so much, right? They want to let her know, yeah, there's something out there, but they're not going to say, there's a little freak hiding in that fog out there and it might do some devilish trickery to you. There might be a big old thing waiting near the tower, perhaps inside of it, That's a big scary mess. Well, I don't want to tell you about that. I don't want to mention that to you, Miss Evergarden. So just an idea. I think it's probably something I will pursue in the future. It's a very good magical way of hand waving away the issue of like, okay, well, the sage is clearly mobility impaired, and how would they get to the bell tower if it, like, because we go along our trek with Teal and Teal kind of struggles with it. How would somebody in a wheelchair make it all the way out there on their own? The answer is they're magic. They're magic. They can do what they want. Don't at me. I write the rules of the magic here. You don't get any input. Go write your fanfics later once the book is published. I'm going to set down the rules for the magic. You just follow them, okay? I'm not good at writing. Don't judge me. So we get to the ultimatum where the sage is offering Teal a position as their apprentice. And it kind of, it already has a little bit of an air of desperation, but we should really make it more apparent. We shouldn't go overboard, but we need to emphasize that the sage is really lonely. That part of why they want Teal as an apprentice isn't just because, okay, you know magic, you know what you're doing, you've seen through it. Maybe you went to a very prestigious arcane academy. But at the core of why they want somebody here is because they're really alone. That it's starting to get at them, that it's starting to eat away at them, that they are not enjoying being an individual in the middle of nowhere living on their own. I think part of this would involve having this be more of a dialogue here. They might stumble through their offer as if they're kind of feeling awkward about it, as if they themselves recognize how absurd of an idea this is, that they're really just latching on to the first person they've met who vaguely understands magic, but they don't want this opportunity to slip through their grasp. And another way we can do this is heightening. Maybe the sage even mentions, I've been here for so long, all by myself. This could just be something they haphazardly mention through conversation. Just to reinforce this idea that, yeah, they're alone and they've been alone for a long time. They've really only had their research to cling to, and maybe they feel like that's starting to not be enough for them. For their sanity's sake, for the sake of companionship, for their mental state, they feel as if they need to, they're compelled to find somebody to pass the torch on to. And maybe that can be another aspect of it. Maybe their livelihood, maybe their mortality, maybe their mental state, maybe they kind of feel like something is gnawing at their mind. Not just the amnesia, but something more sinister is prying their mental fortitude apart. Just an idea. We really want to emphasize that they're lonely in a subtle way, and I think we can do that by reinterpreting these interactions as more of a conversation. A conversation where the sage can very subtly bring up little spritzes? What's the plural of spritz? Spritzes. We'll go with spritzes for now. Little spritzes of information that reinforce this idea. Teal gets this offer and she feels like the decision should be a simple one. And that whole notion is pretty flat. And we just don't dig into Teal's internal turmoil very well. This should be a simple decision. She does know the answer. She should give up all this bell tower nonsense and, withdraw into the sage's world and become their apprentice. She wants to learn magic. She wants to remember magic. She knows she loves magic. So stop all this tomfoolery and accept their request. You don't have to go to the bell tower. No one ever said you had to. You don't even know if it's going to do anything for you. And yet still she falters, still she flounders around. And I don't know, I don't think we've built it up very well. I don't think we've built up this whole idea that she's struggling internally very well. And maybe part of that's because I'm trying to lean too hard on the idea that, oh, Teal's tired, she can't make a good decision right now. But part of the text should be that Teal sees that this is an offer, that it is a good offer, but she still kind of feels like she's going to decline it. Because she has this yearning, this chasm in her heart that is echoing that haunting bell, the peal of that bell forever. And until she quells this insatiable desire that she can't even really process as being logical, until she sorts that out, she's not going to be able to accept the sage's request honestly. And I think something I've really fallen short on is that we haven't mentioned that Teal loves magic a lot. She feels like part of her, her being a wizard is part of her identity, a really big part. And we don't get into any of this. We don't get into any of why Teal misses magic, why she loves magic, why she wants to cast magic again. And this isn't even like a hey, fix it right now thing. This is a hey, we forgot. Hey, we haven't been doing a good job of building Teal as an individual who loves the arcane, who truly. She doesn't thrive in that environment. She's kind of bad at it, but she still loves it. She still clings to this vague talent of hers because it is part of her, that she sees herself as being a practitioner of this area of expertise. I was going to say art, but it's not really an art. It's more of a science in the world. I guess you could say science is an art in a weird way. Anyways, we kind of just dropped the ball. And I think because of that, Teal's reluctance here doesn't read very well. That's all I can really say about the point. Let's keep trucking on. We're almost done here. I think it's good that the sage only notices Teal's exhaustion out of happenstance. They really just stumble into it like, you're tired. Oh no, you look sick. It really exemplifies that they've been too preoccupied with their own concerns to notice Teal. We don't want to paint the sage as being a bad individual, but they are maybe at this point self-interested. It's another facet to their offer that is less overt. They're not an unempathetic individual. They've just been distracted. They're just focused on their own needs and trying to push their agenda. But when it happens, when Teal is obviously kind of looking sickly and pale, the sage's immediate response is, oh my goodness, you should go lie down. It's not painted in a way as like, oh yes, I'll do you this favor and then you'll owe me one. And I guess you could read it that way, but the sage's immediate reaction of like, we need to do something about this is a really important one. We do kind of paint them as maybe not conniving. That might be a bit too harsh, but they definitely twist the situation of like, listen, you don't have to decide right now. We can come to a compromise. And they come to this point of like, how about you go out and look for the bell tower? You can rest here, go and look for the tower. If you find it, you come back. If you change your mind, you come back. Like, just make sure to come back. Because you as an asset are valuable to me. Whether or not you want to stay, I could really use your help in figuring out where the tower is. And you, unlike a lot of the other people I've hired, seem a little more keen on your goals. Ultimately we should build this offer as being kind, because it does come from a place of compassion, but I don't think there's any way we could scrub out the manipulative quality of the sage here. The sage has their own agenda, and it might not be the nicest agenda, and they might be doing it for kind of selfish reasons, but Teal might be okay with that, right? And Teal is still in her mental dilemma of, I don't know, this sounds like a good offer, but I don't know, but I want to find the bell, but this is clearly the better choice. just something to consider. Teal getting smothered by exhaustion, that's good. We should use this moment, right? And I think this might even be back when she's in the guest room. Teal might have already been escorted to the guest room by this point. And she feels like she's being smothered by her exhaustion. And I think this would be a good point to refer back to the river. It's going to become an important theme in the second draft that we bring up this allusion to the sound of water, to the river that she came in on. Water plays a very subdued but important role through the subtext of the book, where Teal has these allusions to water. She keeps referencing things to water, to sounding like water, to feeling like water, and this should be one of them, where she should be so exhausted that she feels like she's drowning in a very gentle river. We can liken this to, kind of drowning, as if she's being embraced by these gentle waters, that she has nothing left to worry about. She can just let the sound of water flood through her to fill her ears and let it take her where it needs to go. Let it take her where it needs to go. There we go. Does that make sense? Whatever. I'll fix it in post. I'll butcher it together in post. And this is pretty bleak. We're definitely being overt with the fact that Teal just wants to embrace oblivion. And that's fine. I think we should maybe not be so overt about it, but it's a good sentiment for her to have. This might even be a great point for her to reflect on her conversation with the attendant. The attendant, if you remember, had a big spiel, a pretty small spiel, actually, about a pretty small spiel about wanting to embrace oblivion and wanting to live a life where nothing really matters because you're just kind of going with the flow, as if it would be pleasant to just show up in a new life and do what you want because no one has any expectations for you. And Teal can be thinking about that right now. Okay, so we're not quite at the guest chamber now, but Teal is led to the guest chamber. And it's a good idea that she doesn't recall how she ends up there, but I think just a little sprinkle more detail regarding the information on how she arrives at the guest chamber would bring the readers along with her better. We can maybe start up the river theme here some more by exemplifying her as if she's floating along, as if she's just drifting towards the guest chamber. We can start this theme of nothing really mattered by describing that she's just kind of become this carefree vagabond floating along, being led to the guest room. We should include also, if we're going down this route, we should include Lacrimosa, as if Lacrimosa is still her guide along that river, as if they're a golden glow that is guiding them along, spurring them towards the guest chamber, towards their destination. And I think if we did that, it would make her at the end of the chapter staring longingly at Lacrimosa a much more heartfelt moment. So we should just reinterpret this scene, this small in-between scene where Teal is being led to the guest chamber. We need to make it a little more poetic, and I think we still want to have her kind of be out of it in a sense, but in doing so, we can build up themes, and a lot of these themes going forward, and even just throughout the book, are really integral to the, the illustrative subtext of the novel. Penultimate, we're at the penultimate note here. We're going to make it. We're going to bring it home, everyone. We're going to do it. I think we need to slow things down when Teal's in the guest chamber. I think we need to do this to emphasize how she's feeling, that she's not with the sage anymore, that conversation took a lot out of her, and she's feeling incredibly disoriented. She's in this strange room, in this strange tower, and she's so tired that she just doesn't care. The sage could have offered her the most rickety bench imaginable, and she would have been like, yeah, okay, I'll take a nap there. Thanks. I'm so tired. Teal has some, like a little bit of a ritual. She kind of gets ready for bed. And I think throughout this process, we should keep it in, but they should all be described as being very haphazard affairs. Teal washes herself, but she really just splashes her face with water and then kind of grumbles. She drinks a bunch of water, and we should describe that as being a messy affair, as if she's just gulping back this water and most of it spilling off of her face. She's undressing. She doesn't like get naked or anything, don't worry. But part of her should be her taking off her clothes in a very haphazard way. You know, maybe she like trips while trying to take off her boots. Maybe she tries to take off her boots standing up and she realizes, I don't have the mental awareness to balance myself. I need to sit down. Maybe she struggles with the buttons on her vest. Maybe she really can't get her cloak off because she hasn't taken her banjo off yet, right? Little things like this. Maybe she struggles with the knot on her belt. Who knows? Anything. But we can use these as details to reinforce the idea that, yeah, she's a little loopy and she's really at the end of her rope. She is running on fumes here. She's got 1% left in that battery of hers. And alongside this, I think there really should be a beat where Teal lies down. Teal lies down on this mattress. Maybe she's just testing it out, but she struggles to stay awake. You know, when you just hit the bed and you're out, that should be almost like Teal is right at that point, and if she let herself, she would absolutely just pass out. But we need to have I think it would read really well if she struggles here, if she fights herself before she allows herself to fall asleep. And the order would be, right, she would get into the room, she would lay on the mattress, she would almost pass out, and then she would go, oh no, I can't, I have to get changed. I can't sleep here. And then she would move on and get herself ready for bed and then go to sleep properly. And as an additional garnish to that thought that Teal should lie down and struggle, I think she should be laying there and her chest should start to hurt. Right? We haven't brought it up nearly enough that Teal's chest is kind of in pain. We brought it up way at the start of the book. It's cropped up here and there, but this would be a really integral beat to bring it up. Her chest is sore. Maybe that's why she can't sleep. She's drifting off, but suddenly there's a sharp pain in her chest. And she grunts a little. She sits up and she thinks, oh, geez, maybe I should check on that. And it's the dulling of this pain, her lethargy, her tiredness. She just sits there and blinks a few times and she thinks, well, since I'm sitting up, I might as well just get ready for bed. Like, I'm way too tired. And maybe even part of her getting changed. Maybe part of her is thinking like, yeah, maybe I'll just take a peek right now. No, I'm too tired. Just get into bed, Teal. Just get into bed. It's fine. We'll worry about it tomorrow. Just some notes regarding her pre-bed routine. And finally, I absolutely adore that Teal falls asleep staring at Lacrimosa. Despite everything, despite all she's been through, she's laying there with Lacrimosa on this night table, and she smiles at them, and it's such a heartwarming little beat that we are ingratiating their relationship as coming to a crux. I think we should shift this a little bit, however. I think to hint at what is about to come, the next segment that we're diving into here, we should include the idea that Teal drifts off not only at the sight of Lacrimosa, but we need to reincorporate the idea that her ears are ringing. This tinnitus that Teal has been having is endless. And even in this moment where she's falling asleep, she's finally having some rest. She's beside her companion. Even then, when she can feign contentedness, there's still that ever-present, ever-foreboding ringing in her ears. The discomfort I have written here in square brackets. But that's that, folks. We're only over 2 hours by a little bit. Like I said, the chapter kind of fades out here with Teal saying goodnight to Lacrimosa. And then we're on to chapter 29. We'll be... Oh, no, we won't be digging into that next week because next week is Christmas. We'll be digging into this at the end of the year on New Year's Eve. Sorry, I forgot. We should have a big celebration. Yay, we did it. The end of chapter 28. Yippee. Yahoo. Okay, no more fun. The fun is over. 11 pages, too many notes. I'm pretty sure chapter 9 is more than 11 pages, so we're in for a doozy. But, hey, folks, we did it. I'm just going to end the stream here. I don't have anything else to talk about. I've been, the old windbag that I am, I've been yapping for too long. So, thanks for coming. That was chapter 28. Those were all of my notes. I think we got it all covered. We really have a lot to fix, from start to finish. We need to incorporate Teal's lethargy throughout the entirety of the chapter, but also in the beginning, Teal needs to struggle with her thoughts. When she approaches the Sage's Tower, we need to put both her in the tower in space so there's not a jarring transition when she arrives. When Teal is in the Sage's Tower, we need to build a better understanding of what she sees throughout the space. Teal is an individual who is very concerned with interior design. She would be picking up things on this. However, as we mentioned, she's still very tired. She should be experiencing things. We need to incorporate Lacrimosa into all of this. Her conversation with the Sage needs to reinforce the world building throughout all of its context. And we also need to build the Sage as something of a keen individual, one who is scholarly, one who is a little charismatic, and who is trying to maybe play with their cards close to their chest. They really want Teal as an apprentice, both for her own good, but also because they're really lonely and they've been stuck in this tower for a long time. We need to emphasize that Teal really hits this dilemma, and she knows the choice should be easy, but she's still uncertain. Afterwards, once it dawns on the Sage that Teal is just haggard beyond all belief, when she's on her own, we need to drive it home that she is exhausted, that she's at the end of her battery, that she is moments away from passing out. And we can do that by reinforcing her senses, by emphasizing her actions throughout, and ending on this note with Lacrimosa that exemplifies their relationship and also denotes how Teal is surrounded, ambushed, almost crushed, almost smothered. Hey, we talked about this earlier, smothered by both her lethargy and the ever-present ringing that exists within her. And if we do all that, I think chapter 28 is going to be a grand slam. Next time we'll talk about chapter 29. Chapter 29, Swain, it's one of my favorites. It's kind of a weird chapter, but I mean, what chapter hasn't been weird thus far? As I mentioned, there will be no stream. There will be no draft diary, rather, next week. We might still play games. We're going to be doing our Saturday stream this Saturday, and we might do another one next Saturday. Keep your eyes open for that. No draft diary next week, however. We will resume the series on the 31st. We'll do a small stream for chapter 29, and then I'm not sure if we'll go on hiatus or not, but I'll keep you posted if we are. For the time being, everyone, thank you very much for coming. I hope you found this lecture elucidating and informative. I hope you are still awake, and I hope you're not as famished as I am. I hope you ate something good today. Going forward, throughout the rest of your whatever, I hope you make the most of it, because it is yours, and it is brilliant and beautiful because you're in it. I'm in it here too right now, and that's kind of special, isn't it? We're sharing this moment together. So thanks for that one. Go forth and enjoy the rest of your whatever as you intend to do. I'm going to eat a banana, and then I'm going to probably sit and cry for a little bit under my desk. But you don't got to worry about that. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see you around, okay? Bye-bye.